Hello, I'm Dave Gentry. Welcome to the RedChip Money Report. And for those of you new to the show, RedChip is an investor relations, media, and research firm focused on emerging growth companies. Our unique platform combines global multimedia with traditional investor relations, reaching investors around the world. Now, today's show features interviews with executives of 3 public companies. First, Wize Pharma, stock symbol WIZP on the OTCQB. Now, Wize Pharma is a clinical stage biopharma focused on innovative dry eye treatments. A recently completed phase 2 clinical trial achieved its primary endpoint, and multiple additional trials are underway. Positive results from any of these programs could send shares much higher. You'll learn more later in the show. The next company featured today is Nemaura Medical, stock symbol NMRD on the NASDAQ. Nemaura has received CE mark approval for a non-invasive, affordable, and flexible continuous glucose monitoring device. Later, you'll learn more about SugarBeet and their near-term commercial launch and the company's plans for long-term growth. The final company featured today is Intellicheck, stock symbol IDN on the New York Stock Exchange American. Now, Intellicheck is a global leader in ID authentication solutions. They started providing authentication solutions to the government and have since grown into a thriving commercial operation. Learn about their technology and prime market position later in the show. Now, before we get to our first interview, our quote of the week comes from my book, Small Stocks, Big Money. Work hard, be a long-term thinker, develop tenacity, and remember, nothing happens without taking calculated risks. This quote comes from Small Stocks, Big Money, a book of exclusive interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. The book is available on our website, redchip.com, and at amazon.com. Now, let's get to our first interview today. It's with Wize Pharma, stock symbol WIZP on the OTCQB. Noam, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Wize Pharma is seeking FDA approval for a proprietary dry eye treatment. Give us an overview of the program and the timeline.
The development program involves around the LO2A. We just recently published the results of our phase 2 clinical study for treatment of dry eye syndrome for patients suffering from conjunctival chalazion, which is basically a severe case, inflammatory case associated with dry eye. The clinical study results demonstrated statistical significance based on a mixed model. Company is right now running another ongoing clinical study for treatment of dry eye patients suffering from Sjögren's syndrome, which is another inflammatory state associated with dry eye. The Sjögren's syndrome study is expected to be completed by the end of the year, probably publishing the results by beginning of 2020, at which stage we will approach the FDA for a pre-IND meeting, which will probably take place somewhere in half of 2020. One product that we're working on is eye drops in combination with certain cannabinoids. I cannot elaborate too much about this program because it's not public information yet. And in addition, we're looking into acquiring a very exciting asset to do with gene therapy.
Noam, what's the essential value proposition? Why should investors take an interest in Wize Pharma today?
Okay, so first of all, being myself an investor in the company, I have my skin in the game. I'm probably the largest shareholder in the company. What I actually identified in the company and why we're so excited is because dry eye is a huge indication. It's actually exceeding $5 billion with a growing life expectancy, with environmental issues, with us staring on screens, TVs and cell phones the whole day and not blinking enough, basically. These are some of the main causes of dry eye. Basically, the dry eye usually starts as dry eye and deteriorates into an inflammatory state. And there you get to a real unmet need. So there's a lot of OTC products out there, but to treat the inflammatory states of dry eye, severe dry eye, it's really an unmet need, and the products which are out there are offering a very low efficacy. We're talking about an existing product, existing manufacturing, has no side effects. This product is being sold in Europe in 4 countries for several years and has no side effects and very well perceived in the market. The product is preservative-free, it's compatible with contact lenses, and it seems to demonstrate a very high potency to treat inflammatory states associated with dry eye. The company has a cash position of over $3 million in cash and current assets, with a burn rate of about $150,000 to $200,000 a month. completed a phase 2 clinical study, ongoing additional clinical study, and a very exciting pipeline. I definitely think it's an opportunity which is kind of overlooked.
Noam, how big is the market opportunity, and what does the competitive landscape look like?
Well, as I mentioned before, the dry eye market is a huge market. It's over $5 billion as we speak, or in the region of $5 billion as we speak, and growing. The current landscape is basically two companies that are controlling the market. One of them is Allergan with Restasis with about $1.3 billion in sales. The other company is Shire, actually, with Xidra. Their sales last year was about $400 million. And they've recently announced being sold to Novartis last week for close to $6 billion. One drug, $6 billion in a combination of cash payment as well as milestone payment.
Talk to us about your business model, and again, reiterate for us your path to commercialization.
Well, Wize Pharma has no aspiration to create its own sales force. Obviously, we're looking to out-license the drug to a big pharma at a certain stage, whether it's going to be after the phase 2 or after the phase 3. We are well funded into the phase 2 and actually finishing the phase 2. As far as the phase 3, I'll elaborate later on. But in general, we're looking to out-license the deal at one stage or another to big pharma. We would certainly, at one stage or another, hire an investment banking group to basically accompany us throughout the process in order to maximize and optimize the process. And I may add that we've already been approached by several leaders in the market or players in the market that are actually putting the company under their radar, under their spotlight.
Noam, what are your initial sales targets?
Again, if we will continue to observe the same efficacy that we've seen in the previous clinical studies, we're aiming very high. We're actually thinking that this could be a very disruptive product. And there's no reason why we won't be anywhere in the regions of Xidra, $400 million last year, or even Allergan with $1.3 billion. So these are really our expectations if we continue in this rate of, if we won't be disappointed with anything that's coming now.
I agree 100%. What's your current burn rate, and how much capital will you need to complete your trials?
Well, we're currently, our burn rate is about $200,000 a month. We have current resources which would suffice to cover the entire clinical program for till the end of phase 2 clinical study for Sjogren syndrome. The phase 3 study is expected to cost anywhere between $15 to $20 million, which, the company would probably have to either go back to the market to raise money, or I want to specify that we also have out there warrants, which could very well be a source to take us well into the phase 3 study without having to go to the market in the near future.
Noam, to recap, what's the main takeaway for investors? Why should they own your stock today? And I will mention that Zacks has research on your company with a $2.93 target price, considerably higher than what your stock is trading as of this interview.
The main take, I would say, that we have here a company with a team of experts. We recruited a team of really key opinion leaders, experts in the ophthalmic field. That includes Professor Joseph Tauber, Professor Pennias Bell, all with world repute, Professor Belkin, Dr. Franca Moyal. We've recently been honored to be joined by Mark Sikerek, who have played very significant roles in major international companies in the field. We think it's a de-risk opportunity, basically with a drug with existing sales, existing manufacturing, no side effects, and very promising results on the inflammatory states associated with dry eye. We're a small cap, probably still below the radar, as obviously you can see. Basically, there's almost no premium on the cash. I mean, if you look at the company financials, there's almost no premium on the cash. We have very encouraging phase 2 clinical results. And as I mentioned more than once, a very exciting pipeline.
Well, Noam, it's a very compelling value proposition. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Now, to get more information about Wize Pharma, call us at 1-800-REDCHIP to speak to a specialist, or email us at info@redchip.com. And you can also visit our website at redchip.com. Now let's go to our second interview today with Nemaura Medical, stock symbol NMRD on the NASDAQ.
Hi, Faz. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Now, Nemaura Medical is working on the commercialization of sugar beet, an innovative and non-invasive continuous glucose monitoring solution for the global diabetes market. Tell us about the technology and what differentiates it from the competition.
Currently, there are two ways of measuring blood glucose levels. One is by finger pricking, taking a blood sample and applying it to a sensor, and then you measure it and you read a level intermittently as and when throughout the day. The other is where we have continuous meters. And notably, you have the Dexcom and you have the Abbott Libre. In both of those instances, what you have is a sensor that is inserted inside the skin, so subcutaneous, and the device then sits on top of the arm for the duration of wear, which can be up to 14 days in the case of the Libre. In our case, what we have is a sensor that will sit on top of the skin and does not in any way become embedded inside the skin. And what that therefore means is that it's differentiated from the point of view that it is non-invasive, it is sitting on top of the skin, and therefore it is allowing individuals flexibility over how long they wear the device. So whether somebody chooses to wear it for, say, several hours in a day, or whether they choose to wear it once a week, for example, they can suddenly now do that. Whereas with the existing devices, you cannot do that. Once you have a sensor on, it is on for that duration, whether that be 10 days or 14 days. So that's the key differentiator. There aren't any needles that are used to insert the sensor in the skin. The sensor purely sits on top of the skin.
Baz, what's the essential value proposition? Why should investors own your stock today?
Well, we are at what you can call an inflection point, in the sense that we've spent the last approximately 7 years developing this technology. So as everybody's aware, developing medical devices, it can take a very long time. In the case of Dexcom, it took them over a decade before they got their device on the market. So we've been developing this for a number of years, and we are now at a point where launch is imminent, if you like. So literally within the next few weeks, we should be launching product into some of the key markets in the world, for example, Europe to start with, and then other markets. So when you look at it from that perspective, investors are not going to be investing in what is, let's say, research and development anymore. This is now all about commercialization and how can we most effectively exploit the market. And of course, the market is vast.
Which leads to the next question, Faz. Just how big is that market opportunity for Nemaura?
So you have currently almost 450 million diabetics. When you then consider pre-diabetics, it numbers almost 3 times that number. So from that point of view, it's quite a daunting prospect, really, trying to address such a huge market. But you have a vast market potential there. But also, we have to look at it from the perspective that existing continuous glucose monitors, they have been unable to tap into the broader market. If you take Dexcom, they have been on the market for 7 to 8 years now, and they predominantly cater for the type 1 market. They have around 350,000 patients that use the device in a market where you have over 450 million diabetics, of which about 45 million are type 1, for example. And then you take the Abbott Libre device, which was launched more recently, and they have now been able to set a precedent whereby they've demonstrated that CGM can be very usefully applied by both type 1s and type 2s. So you have a large number of type 2 patients that are also now using that device. So what you have is a situation where, despite the markets that they both address, i.e. the type 1s and type 2s, the uptake is still quite small, relatively speaking. In the case of the Libre, I think it's in the region of around 1.5 million users worldwide currently. So when we consider that there's a market of 450 million approximately, and yet you only have less than 2 million people using continuous glucose monitors, you have to ask yourself the question, well, why is that? And therefore, what is the real market opportunity? Why aren't more and more people using this? And of course, this is where our sugar beet device has a significant advantage, in that because you can use it on a daily intermittent basis, i.e. several hours a day, whether it be 10 hours, 14 hours, 24 hours, and you're not lumbered with the device for several days continuously, it means that therefore your daily cost is actually significantly less, i.e. in the sense that if you now apply a device once a week, you pay for 4 devices a month, for example. But coupled with that, the fact that it is non-invasive. So what we expect is to be able to address both the type 1 market, because bearing in mind, less than 30% of type 1s currently use CGMs. So we have 70% of type 1s that could also benefit from glucose trending. and understanding how daily lifestyle factors are affecting their glucose levels, as opposed to just finger prick testing. And that's a very large number, 70% plus of type 1 diabetics. In addition, you've got the type 2s, who, as I mentioned earlier, Abbott has set a precedent whereby they've demonstrated type 2s are also now using CGMs. So in our case, type 2s can also use it, but in addition, the vast number of pre-diabetics will also now be able to benefit from this, because as a pre-diabetic, for example, taking a finger prick or a couple of finger pricks in a day, every now and again, is really giving you a point-in-time measurement, and it doesn't really add a huge amount of value. Whereas if you're able to apply that device and get a daily profile over the course of, say, one day every 3 months or every 6 months, it gives you a far better insight into your glucose fluctuations, your tolerance to glucose and insulin, etc. And therefore, we feel that the market that we will be able to penetrate will be substantially higher than what the competitors have done so far.
Let's talk about upcoming product launches in the United States and Europe. Are you forecasting a product launch this year?
We expect to launch the product into Europe in the coming months. And the way we anticipate doing that is, first of all, by having a soft launch whereby we will have the product launch into various communities, and we will have individuals forming peer groups to be able to support each other in terms of the utility of the device and, importantly, what value they can derive from it. Because it's one thing having a device that gives you some data, but it's a completely different story when it comes to, well, what do you do with that data? You know, do you use it for therapeutic decisions? Do you use it to motivate yourself? Do you use it for lifestyle adjustment, for example? And so what we're planning to do is do an initial soft launch in the UK, followed by other major European territories such as France, Germany, Italy, Spain, etc. But also there are certain territories that will accept the CE mark approval as part of the registration process. So take Australia, for example, and some of the territories in the Middle East. And so very soon after launching into Europe and the UK, we will then be launching into those territories. With regards to the US, we are anticipating submitting to the FDA quite imminently, so possibly within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then thereafter, the review process, I guess, will probably be in the region of 6 to 9 months. And we therefore expect that sometime early next year to be able to launch into the US as well.
Faz, of course, management always plays a pivotal role in any company, and especially in smaller cap companies. Who are the key players at Nemaura?
Very recently, we hired Dr. Fred Schaefstow, and he's got an impeccable track record in the diabetes space. More notably, recently, he spent a number of years with Dexcom, where he was in fact pivotal to obtaining reimbursement for the Dexcom devices in Germany. And he's got broader experience throughout Europe and as well as the US. And of course, as a physician by training, he is very familiar with the space. And so we consider him as being one of our key team members with respect to commercialization of the device. But also, as you will appreciate, any company of our size is always evolving. And one of the things we are doing at this point in time, and we have been doing continuously, is bringing on additional individuals to basically propel the company forward with regards to commercialization, because the R&D side has been very successfully completed. That's how we see it, as far as glucose monitoring goes, that is. And our next step is, of course, to commercialize for the glucose monitoring market. And so for that, we are now in the process of, as I say, hiring additional individuals around the world to commercialize that and to be able to ensure that the delivery of that product is as efficient and seamless as possible. In addition, of course, in the background, we will continue our endeavors with research with regards to the additional applications the technology has. And recently, we published some information on the website in relation to lactate monitoring. So we have already successfully proven concept with regards to lactate monitoring. So again, that is something that we'll be bringing forward as well in the near future.
Now, Faz, in summary, why should investors take an interest in Nemaura today?
We've developed a product which has the potential to disrupt the market for the simple reason that we have a product that can become ubiquitous in that virtually everybody could use it without any fear of, say, using needles or without the worry of the cost that's going to be involved, because they can now use the device on a single day, a week, or a month, or whenever they choose, and still obtain very, very powerful data, i.e., glucose profile based on their daily lifestyle activities. So no other company to date has been able to successfully launch a non-invasive system like this. So we would be the first. And of course, the market has grown significantly over the course of the last decade or so in particular. And also, very importantly, I would add, whilst there was, if you like, a general belief in the industry that continuous glucose monitoring was really reserved for type 1 diabetics, I think Abbott Libre has clearly demonstrated that that is not the case, and type 2s also would benefit from it. And also, of course, there's no doubt that pre-diabetics would also benefit from using this type of system. So from that perspective, when you take into account 450 million diabetics, 2-3 times that number of pre-diabetics, and a device that can now be used as and when a person chooses at a very low cost point, then you realize the potential that the technology and therefore the company has.
Makes sense, and it's a very powerful story. Thanks for joining us today, Faz.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Now, to learn more about Nemaura Medical, visit nmrdinfo.com. You'll find fact sheets, presentations, the latest videos. It's all free. And you could subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of their latest news. You should also call us at 1-800-RedChip. Speak to a specialist if you have questions. The final company featured today is Intellicheck, stock symbol IDN on the New York Stock Exchange American. Brian, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Intellicheck is a trusted industry leader in technology solutions that stop identity theft and fraud with real-time identity authentication and age verification. Let's start with an overview of your products.
Sure. We started off doing ID authentication for the military at their military bases and secure government facilities. And it really made a lot of sense to take this technology and then move into financial services where we could stop identity theft, and then also into age-restricted products to keep those out of the hands of the underage. So we really now serve mostly the financial services industry and age-restricted products.
What's the essential value proposition? Why should investors take an interest in Intellicheck today?
Well, I think the main reason is that identity theft is not going away. 14.4 million Americans had their identities stolen last year to the tune of $14.7 billion. The amount of data breached was up 126% in 2018 over 2017. And it looks like 2019 is already on pace to beat 2018. So that means the data to steal your identity is out there, and it's cheap. Your social security number costs $1. A driver's license costs about $20. And all they need is a license that, for authentication, supposedly who they are, with your information and their picture. And those can be bought online for $100. And that's all it takes for a crook to go into a store and get credit in your name. We stop that.
Right. Brian, talk to us about your business model. How does the company make money?
Really two ways, depending on whether it's age-restricted or if it's identity theft. For age-restricted products, it's buy really device at the store. So if a bar owner or somebody who owns a vaping shop or alcohol store wants to make sure they're not selling to the underage, they can download our app and they just pay us a monthly fee. For the financial services, the real thing is every application for them is a chance for them to be defrauded. So we do a per scan model for the large banks and credit card issuers and retailers. So it's a numbers game for that because they'll do millions and millions of scans per month.
And you have a number of Fortune 500 clients, correct?
Yeah, we do. And got 6 of the top credit issuers and banks in the United States that are relying on our products now.
You recently announced your 2019 first quarter financial results, showing a 20% increase year over year in revenues. Talk to us about the growth and discuss some of your 2019 revenue growth goals.
Yeah, the growth was really, it's a testament to the product, and the growth was really in our SaaS services, which is the majority of that is coming from the financial services area, the banks realizing that this is the most effective way to stop this fraud while onboarding good clients faster. So that's a measure of the amount of retailers that we brought on board. And we're in the process of rolling out now 3,000 more retail establishments. And we've got 16 retailers in various stages of implementation. So that's what, that alone will fuel our growth in addition to the new sales that we expect to bring in.
Brian, you recently announced entering into new markets such as hospitals. Can you talk to us about the opportunity and other markets you might enter?
Yeah, I believe that just shows the amount of industries that are being defrauded where they need proper authentication to make sure you are who you say you are when you're doing business with them. Because it is, as I said, way too easy for somebody to get your information and what we all believe proves who you are, a driver's license that looks real. We've got some of our police clients who tell us that there is no way for even them to use the naked eye to determine whether a card is fake or not. So the technology solution is what is needed, no longer relying on the human eye. So that's where we're going. It's why I think we'll continue to grow.
Brian, who are some of your competitors?
I really honestly can say that there aren't competitors. There are people who say that they can do what we do, but it's really our effectiveness that makes us the market leader. For example, before the New York DMV decided to use our product to authenticate licenses when they're going around New York State, their director of investigations, unbeknownst to us, and announced it in the press, not to us, said that before they used the product, they tested 1,000 fake IDs, and we caught all 1,000. So that shows how effective we are and why we really don't have competition in this space.
Very, very impressive. To recap, Brian, what's the main takeaway for investors today? Why should they own your stock?
Because currently we're in 12,000 retail establishments with 16 other retailers in various stages of implementation. We've got 6 bank and credit issuers who are relying on our product and more in discussions with us. We are unique in that there are over 55 law enforcement agencies that use our product to make sure the IDs that they're checking are real. And we are stopping a fraudulent transaction every 90 seconds. That's a value proposition that makes a lot of sense, and we are taking a large bite out of that $14.7 billion loss to identity theft.
Brian, thanks for being with us today. Impressive story.
Thank you for having me.
Now, to get more information about Intellicheck, call us at 1-800-RedChip or email us at info@redchip.com. Now, let's do a quick recap on the 3 public companies we met with today. First, Wize Pharma, stock symbol WIZP on the OTCQB. Wize Pharma is developing innovative treatments for a variety of dry eye conditions. We've also seen success in clinical trials and have several upcoming milestones that could provide catalysts to send the shares higher. Call us at 1-800-RedChip or email us at info@redchip.com to learn more. We also met with Nemaura Medical on the NASDAQ, symbol NMRD. This company just received CE mark approval for a continuous glucose monitoring device called SugarBeat. They're also expected to submit an FDA application for approval in the US. For more information, visit NMRD Info to learn more. And finally, you met Intellicheck, stock symbol IDN on the NYSE American. As the world becomes increasingly digital, ID authentication plays an ever larger and more vital role in security. This is a proven leader with strong growth prospects. To learn more, give us a call today at 1-800-RedChip. Again, if you have any questions about today's featured companies, call us at 1-800-RedChip. Or email us at info@redchip.com to learn more. Again, I'm Dave Gentry. Thank you for being with me today. And remember, while small caps can provide significant gains, you also must be prepared for the downside. And remember, many of the companies featured on this show are RedChip client companies, so please always read our disclosures at redchip.com. Thank you for being with us today.